Hey everybody, Breakthrough Health and Life Coach Glenn Hattem here, and I'm here with my very good friend Stephanie Miller.
Hello.
And we've been good friends for quite some time, but also have, as colleagues, have quite a bit of admiration for one another on the unique paths we've both been on and the profound work that we've been able to do with clients through a lot of, we're very similar in that we really dig into something we believe in and follow that light, that path of educating ourselves in order to expand our own work with ourselves. But then, along that path, it's like, oh my gosh, this is such powerful work that others would really benefit from. Someone like myself, who's a few hops and skips ahead of them, that really has compassion and patience to be there and sit with someone doing the hard work of healing and growing and expanding to the possibilities that we're meant to be living into. And I thought it'd be really great to start off this call today by Steph sharing a little bit about maybe just starting off by telling people what you do for a living, and then we can backtrack to kind of how this unique path of an adventure, a beautiful journey, a painful journey, has really grown you and the people that have been able to come in contact with you. So maybe just start off sharing a little bit about where you're at these days and what you're up to.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So I guess to start, I'm a mindfulness instructor and a psychotherapist, and I have a private practice, and I'm also very passionate about leading retreats and different types of transformative experiences here in the Rocky Mountains.
Great. And you do remarkable work with people. But before it was remarkable, it was, I guess, a painful process of seeking, of trying to discover a way out of suffering and out of and finding new direction. And I think maybe talk a little bit back to, East Coast, the lifestyle, before I go further, and this is probably a whole nother interview, which I'll invite you back for. Maybe I'll invite your mom and your brother for. But one of the things I'm really just blown away by is your family dynamic and the relationship you have with your brother and your mom, which are like your best friends, and they're amazing people. I've met both of them, and I'm in awe. And so there's a family dynamic that was really powerful that got interrupted abruptly. And maybe the story starts there about your career path. How does one end up as a mindfulness person?
Yeah, wow. Not totally sure how far to back up there, but yeah, I was raised outside of Manhattan to a French mom, a South African dad. They met in Mexico and then raised us in the States. And we were fortunate to create a community and have friends that were like family, but none of our actual family was in this country. So I think that lended itself to really cultivating a strong bond between the four of us. And you touched on a few different points of my background. So that's kind of the overarching what started the family bond being that strong. And as a result of being raised where I was in the East Coast, I went into corporate career. Worked in Manhattan throughout my 20s, and it was pretty high pace and intense. And yeah, I guess to trace it back to there, I was sent on an assignment in India for 6 months. And that was my first glimpse of there being a different way to live. I was introduced to meditation, was introduced to a different lifestyle that I hadn't known up until that point.
And what was your work prior to that? What was your work? That's pretty.
Oh gosh. Well, I was working with outsourcing there. Yeah, I was working for a finance company in Manhattan at that time. Went on to do some real estate stuff, which has continued on to be a passion of mine in this next chapter also. So really grateful for all of those experiences. And when I moved back from New York, had a series of events that helped me just reshape how I wanted to show up in the world. From your questioning, I think that's part of the story you want me to go into. And yeah, I ended up with an injury that left me unable to walk for several months. And initially, I was really just following a very Western traditional path with the painkillers, and I did need to have surgery. But I remember really having a hard talk with myself, as I was just numbing the days and still in pain and really experiencing tremendous anger. And I thought, if this is what my life is going to look like, how can I show up for it? Um, and so I decided, instead of taking those painkillers, I was going to go inward, and really called on a lot of the meditations that I'd learned in India, and also followed the work of John Kabat-Zinn, and amongst many other techniques, but spent my days just exploring. Even though I couldn't walk, it wasn't my whole body that was in pain. And so learning where within my body was the pain, and what were the sensations, and how far did they travel, and was it radiating, was it stabbing, my hand wasn't in pain, and just learning myself through a new lens.
I was like
Um,
observing the whole thing for the first time, all and
yeah,
following the intelligence, underneath.
yeah, really. And what I really came to learn is that, yeah, the physical pain was horrible, but the real suffering was coming from my thoughts. And so all of the associated things, whenever I would experience something physically painful, it was the thought that was connected to it that was really just creating the suffering. And so that's what I had to learn to uncouple and to separate. So yeah, I spent 4 months on my back in my parents' house. They took me back in, and I realized how grateful I was, how lucky I was to have parents who, at that stage of my life, were still willing to take me in, to feed me, to care for me, and really shifted that anger to a space of gratitude and appreciation, as I wasn't able to care for myself. And then the story continues. I did have surgery, learned to walk again, and as I was recovering, my dad was diagnosed with a really aggressive cancer, and we had a really beautiful conversation where he just said, "I watched you go from angry to at peace, and how did you do that?" And so we sat together and made the last remaining months of his life just incredibly connected and present, and really, really transformed the way that I wanted to show up in the world. I went back to my job. I didn't even make it to the lunch break. I was like, okay. That was after he passed. I was like, there's clearly something else for me to do in this world. And it's part of the journey to hear.
I think we both share that, having lost my father to cancer, and
Mhm.
being able to do some fundraising and work for helping others, with
Yeah.
cancer survivors. And I guess that leads into the next piece, that chapter that somehow shows up on the horizon for you and comes in, and maybe share a little bit from there.
Yeah. From there, I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that what I had been doing wasn't my path. And I was feeling very called to my ancestors, and wanted to connect, mostly with my French grandparents. They'd both since passed, but I wanted to go out and feel the earth of where they were from. And so I flew to France and packed a backpack, and ended up syncing up with the Camino de Santiago, which is a ancient pilgrimage, and kind of paved my own way within that. I just loved being on the land, and sleeping under the stars, and ended up just walking and sleeping in the mountains. I acquired a tent along the way, but most of the time was just under the stars, and stayed out there for just short of a year, and really got
Oh,
to know
wow.
myself.
You bet you will.
Yeah, it was really hard and really beautiful. And everything that I needed, so much more than what I knew I needed, was provided. And one of my first nights out there, my back went into spasm, and I mean, there's so many stories I could share from this experience, but just to touch on one, my surgeon had given me these pills in case I had any trouble with my back, and one of the first nights, it just went into a full spasm. And I remember looking at the pills and just feeling like that, that was my fear that I was carrying. And I looked at all of the things in my backpack and I was like, if I continue carrying all of this, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to be able to walk. And I just looked at each of my items and I was like, I am carrying my fear.
Mm.
And so I threw out the pills. I got rid of all of my clothing, ended up just with the one outfit on my body, and just continued on from there, and have yet to have any other back problems since that day.
We have more clothes though,
I do
because
have
you do
more
like
clothes.
clothes. She has really great style.
I do have
You're
clothes.
like that part. That part's back.
Yeah, parts of it. My style might have changed from my New York days, but yeah.
Yes. And tell
So
maybe share a little bit about how I think it's a beautiful story, and I mean, just like you said, like it was hard, it was
yeah.
beautiful. The universe somehow provided. It was like a trusting
Mhm.
work. It was a path of trust,
Yeah.
self-trust, and trust with like everything's provided. And I've had some pretty significant moments like that too, and I can attest that we have to lean into that fire. We have to
Yeah.
step into that abyss to just trust the good nature of people, trust the nature of things, trust your nature.
Yes. Yeah. I
and
know.
and
Oh,
and
you've been
so
through it too.
oh yeah, and I mean, we can both speak to that. And then path is now coming through you and leading you, and you're just kind of getting out of the way now. You're like letting go. And so tell us a little bit about how you came in contact with the organization, Learning for Living. So was
Yeah.
it, what's the name again? I'm sorry.
Live by living.
Live by
But I
Living. I
have
always get it
my
wrong.
work has
Live by
stepped
Living.
away from there. I think
Yeah.
so, but yeah, so after my time in France and then Spain, I ended up coming back and deciding to go to graduate school, which is what brought me to Colorado
Mhm.
to become a psychotherapist. And in that time, I connected with a man who had lost his wife to cancer, and he had started an organization, Live by Living, to lead retreats for cancer survivors, really anywhere from diagnosis onward. And so throughout grad school and beyond, it's been like 8 years now, I think, last time I calculated, I'm not sure. Got really into leading retreats in that capacity, and it's been beautiful. Really doing the fundraising, doing just creating these really healing environments that were really in alignment with what I found the most healing through my journey, which was the movement aspect, the community, not really knowing where you're going to end up, but knowing that you're going to be taken care of and provided for. And so that was really the basis of how I like to show up for people. But in the past few years, since COVID, wasn't able to host gatherings in person. So did create an online wellness program, which has been a great substitute for, not being able to get together in person, but then moved forward with my private practice and yeah, and have pivoted in direction. I still love supporting the cancer community.
Yeah, great
And have
organization. And the way you
it's great.
create, you were the one really, you were up front and driving this whole organization. As far as what I experienced, having done some volunteering and being up in Estes Park, and just like you said, the movement, the energy, the care. You're quite a container creator. That's definitely your, it would be like, in the hipster world, you'd say, wow, she could promote events and put them on and put the right panache. And but what happens in these events, the magic that happens in there, that's what your gift is. You can create these containers, whether it's a retreat or an environment just for an individual, because I've experienced that in our one-on-one time together. It's very trustworthy, because you've gone through your path of learning to trust yourself and trusting nature, and that gets bestowed upon others. I always believe you can't give what you don't got, and you've got it, and it flows out. I don't think you could not be doing it. It would be really, I don't know how to experience you another way.
Well, thank you. It's been an absolute labor of love, and the whole journey has just been a real act of surrendering and letting go, and um, just showing up. Showing up for the places within people where our society teaches us to turn away, and I find that's where I like to lean in. And um, the past few years have been really guided to work to experience to hold different sacred medicines, and so studied with MAPS as a with the MDMA assisted psychotherapy, amongst other sacred medicines, to really provide transformative experiences and really offer deep healing through the integration of people who have that experience.
Now, for those who aren't as educated about these vehicles that have become more popular nowadays, and there's a variety of different platforms, and Colorado is one of the the places that is very expansive, conscious wise. People are into going inward, maybe turn off the football game, baseball game, anything of entertainment sorts, and become fascinated with the entertainment of doing the work of self-exploration. And so what are these tools like giving one greater access to versus without those things? Because I've read a lot of great books, and I have experimented with a lot of these medicines and journeys. So intellect, you can get so far with intellect,
Yeah.
but there's something about dropping out of your headspace, what's going on in here, and dropping into your body and having a connection with what goes on below the veil. And maybe sharing a little bit from your wisdom of maybe just a little bit about, there's a lot of folks that are either intimidated, concerned, have preconceived views of things. I know I grew up in California, in the Bay Area, and my thoughts around people who do drugs, I'm a very health conscious guy. Me, I'm like hardcore fitness athlete guy, real clean diet. My bad is like organic gummy bears, get my sugar fix or something. How would you because this stuff's not for everyone, or at certain times, that there's definitely, I don't recommend these things for people just to go out and try a bunch of things, but my experience has been a calling forth within, like an education around things, and then an intelligence that rises within me, and a curiosity, and I followed that gentle path and those nudges to when it was an appropriate time to and even the right tools. Like maybe share a little bit about your experience as a coach, as a therapist. How does one explore these things, and what are these things really about?
Yeah. Well, you're naming it absolutely right. It's not for everyone, and it is a tool. It's a tool. There are many tools that we can use therapeutically. And so if you are someone who's interested in exploring these paths, it's not a quick fix. It's something where, when you're really ready to do that work and look deeper within yourself without all the constraints, it's an exquisite tool for that, for the right person and the right circumstance. And the clinical,
real quick, when you say constraints, what is that? What is that psychological constraint, or that like interior constraint, that one's dealing with the world?
Yeah, well, I mean, it really depends what we're going through, but I can say, the different medicines work on different energy levels. So it really, speaking broadly, is a little bit more challenging.
Right.
The clinical trials that are being done with MDMA are showing such promising results, ranging from, a 30% improvement rate of PTSD to a 68% cure rate of PTSD. People a year later aren't showing symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. And so when you're looking at like that, and that's not, this is separate from recreational use. I share your background. I never did, drugs. My lifestyle's incredibly clean, very aware of everything that I put into my body and making sure that it's healthy. And so for me to cross the line to go from drugs are terrible to this is medicine, it has been a complete transformation within myself.
Yeah, and you know, I know stuff for myself. You know, I did a number of different therapies working through child trauma, and most of us have that. It's not like, oh, I got this unique badge. It's most of us, to some extent, receive certain messaging, and you know that we took that childhood, you know, decision into like, okay, this is going to be I'm going to bring my childhood strategy for handling things that are too much into adulthood, and then you know we run into our adult relationships, and we've got to unpack some of these things now that
Yeah.
now all this historical data that and things to work through. And I found that going to regular therapists and just talk therapy or other modalities didn't quite give me access at a visceral level, the shifts I was needing to make, or the freedom, like MDMA, for example, doing a session, you know, it's the equivalent of, they say it's, and I felt it was equivalent of like, this is like a couple of years of therapy in like a few hours.
Yeah.
That kind of impact, to be able to talk about subject matter that normally had such charge, was like now a free flowing, beautiful thing to play with, and to gain access to other aspects of myself in life. And maybe you could speak something differently about that, but you know, these different tools like MDMA and some of the popular nowadays, ayahuascas, there's mushroom journeys, microdosing. There's this whole world of ways to address those things in hiding that are actually directing our choices, so our choices aren't as free as maybe we think they are.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what I would want to add to anyone listening to this is that if it is something you're interested in, then finding someone who you really trust to guide you within the process, you know, and it is legal in many places. And so there are places to access the medicine in a way, and then working with an integration coach. So helping to make meaning of this expanded state of consciousness, helping you to understand what you experienced and move forward in a way that allows you to live your full expression.
And what I love about you is someone, you know, you're going to look for a coach, someone who's not going to say, you know, okay, you're calling in wanting to go try this thing out. Maybe this is not the right thing to do just yet.
Mm-hmm.
Let's, what really needs attention? Where's a good place to start? And so I love the wisdom that you always bring to each person. It's like you're very curious, you listen deeply, and you allow someone to make a really intelligent decision for themselves at their pace.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of cases, you turn people away from it, from particular tools, and make other recommendations, other places that are more appropriate to where they're on their journey. That's going to be even more impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, healing is not linear and it's not a one size fits all. So it's really being with each person to see where they're at, and what is a suggested path for them. And ultimately, I believe that we all have the tools to heal within. And so just helping uncover different techniques that people might not be aware of, and intuitively trusting that they know where they need to go. And there's no quick fix. And while I'm a massive advocate for these medicines, there's still no quick fix. You know, life is hard. Sometimes it's harder than others. And to have someone there with us to help us navigate the territory that feels maybe too dark or scary to go into is a really key component to the process.
Absolutely. I mean, I believe I've had so many extraordinary teachers like yourself. I mean, I've just, you know, I had a lot of things driving that I wanted to work through. And, you know, it's like when the student is ready, the teacher rises. Well, I had a lot, I surrounded myself with these people came into my life. And I was, just as much as I came into theirs, at the right time. Like you're always being prepared for these next steps, even though maybe it doesn't feel like it at the time. But you are getting these intelligent nudges of supposed to, come in contact with this person, connect with this person, explore it, however long, 1 hour, 1 day, but that conversation that you're in is the next piece of the puzzle. And if you're helping someone who's at that place of kind of trying to puzzle things out, what is it that you, I guess, uniquely bring these days? Because you've been you've been following your path and your dream, and you've created this really extraordinary place and way to work with people. When someone's kind of at this place of they're getting that nudge, and they're fortunate enough, and we'll give everyone your information, but they're fortunate enough to bump into you and be able to get on have initial conversation with you.
Yeah.
I guess my long-winded question is, if we take all the roadblocks out of the way of just picking up the phone and just calling Steph, like they don't have to worry about this piece. They know they're just going to have a conversation with you. They're just going to make a great connection. What would that, I guess, look like for someone trying to get a hold of you, and what you're there to offer, and for them to like explore and see if it's a fit right now, see if it's a fit down the road. Maybe it's a fit for that family member of yours who you really care about, that just needs this and would really benefit. How is it that, because there's a unique thing that you provide, which is there's just no, as soon as I give the number out here, folks, there's nothing in the way now for reaching out to Steph and connecting with her and having a heartfelt conversation. And I just, maybe you could share kind of like someone coming to that next step.
Yeah. So, it's hard to generalize that and what that phone call would look like, because everyone that calls is showing up with themselves as I'm showing up with myself. And it's a co-creation of what happens between us. And so, I bring with me my life experience, I bring with me my professional training, and you bring with you what you're going through and your own intuition and your own desire to heal. And there's a space where we meet within there. And so what I would say is that I offer free 15-minute consultations through Zoom where we can connect and see if we're a correct fit for working together, figure out what it is that you're looking for, and how it feels between us. And so I have a calendar link where you can just go in and pick a time that's connected directly to my schedule, and then we go from there to see what can be created, what healing can be offered within that space together.
Have your pens out, your papers out. What would be how would they get a hold of you? Where is the best place to find you? What's your website or phone number? What do you want to provide right now?
I don't know if there is a link. I can put my calendar link wherever you're posting this. I'm not sure how that works.
Is there a link on your website to that?
Yeah, there's a link on my website. My website is www.selahmind.com, which is SELAHMIND.com. And I can provide that all to you as you'd like to, or Stephanie@selahmind.com is how you can email me. And then my calendar link, which is through Calendly. So those are the most effective ways to get a hold of me.
Great. And now you live right outside of Boulder, just outside of Boulder, in this oasis. She has this beautiful retreat center that she's been just, it's amazing.
Yes.
And it's growing and expanding. Yeah, the energy there. So connecting on a Zoom call is wonderful. If you get fortunate to get the opportunity to come hang out with Steph in person on the land, be on the land, it's very healing. It's a healing space. And I'm just so appreciative just to sit with you as always. And I hope this has been, this is probably a good time to wrap things up. This is just a great opportunity for anyone who's just wanting to get out of maybe an old conversation you've been stuck in, and you want to be really heard and listened to in that conversation, and then also open up a pathway for another conversation of possibility. Steph's a wonderful, sweet soul to connect with. She's also very fierce and very courageous, maybe in the spots where you feel like you're lacking at the moment or have been. She'll bring that fiery energy where it's needed. And so that I appreciate. So with that, I just want to thank everybody for listening in. Thank you, Steph, for sitting with me for a little bit today to share a little bit about what you're up to in the world. And yeah, please reach out to her just to have a wonderful conversation. So.
Yeah, thank you, Glenn, for all that you're bringing to the world and the way you're continually showing up for yourself and for others. It's an inspiration.
Thank you. And we'll see you guys later. Thank you, Steph.
Thank you.